This year's general election is expected to be one of the keenest in the country's recent history. Whichever way the results go, history is bound to be made. A victory for the ruling NDC will confine the NPP to 12 years in opposition, the longest the party has been out of government since its formation in 1991. A victory for the NPP will limit President John Mahama to one-term presidency, a historic first since the Fourth Republic began in 1992. A victory for any other party will be the first since the 1992 Constitution. Ahead of the elections, the country's men in beret serving with the AU force in Somalia have cautioned Ghanaians against any acts that can lead to violence. Conflicts can be very devastating, as evidenced in Somalia. My colleague Abdul Hai Mumin reports.
These are some of the men and women in uniform serving in war-torn Somalia. For more than 2 decades, Somalia has been referred to as a failed state, mainly because many of the state's institutions had become non-functional due to the war and activities of Al-Shabaab. The humanitarian disaster which unfolded in Somalia has been described as one of the worst in the world. The scale and magnitude of the crisis and the speed at which it deteriorated was alarming and profound. 1 in 6 children under the age of 5 are acutely malnourished. Killings and abductions of aid workers, increased troop and militia activity and threats to relief organizations made humanitarian response and interventions extremely difficult, leading to the suspension of humanitarian operations. Thankfully, gradually, Somalia is beginning to crawl back to life. Some of the state institutions, such as the police service, are beginning to work in parts of that country. At the heart of training the Somali police are Ghanaian security officers. ACP Ayite Ayi is the coordinator of the police training in Somalia. He says, from what he has seen and experienced of the war in Somalia, Ghanaians must work to maintain peace in the country in the lead-up to the general elections.
As we approach elections, we must see that the only way to avoid, these type of devastating conflicts is to stick to what we will call good governance.
I met some of the security men at their base in Mogadishu, and they narrated their experience, including how they narrowly escaped death after an attack on their base by some militants.
Yes, I was fired from very close. Very close. Yeah, so I was asking Eric this question this morning.
Anything can happen to any of us at any time.
Anytime.
That we know, but you don't allow that
to deter you from
working. Take the better part of us.
This is not a conventional warfare that you face your enemy, you know him, he's wearing this one. No. They come out of the civilians, they attack and they go back.
And they withdraw. And they melt into the civilians.
So you don't know.
These guys are workers. They come to do clean do everything. Yeah. And once they were coming in with weapons and doing all sorts of things.
The officers were unanimous in their claim. They want Ghanaians to make national unity paramount even as the country goes to the polls later this year.
Once we are living peacefully, let's live at that. And I pray that you, the journalists, would constantly make sure that we don't encourage people to get into those fields because they are very difficult to resolve. And just seeing what you've seen here, we are all encamped. You can't go into town on your own. You must go in an armored vehicle. Why? And they themselves can't even talk to you freely because when they talk to you once, twice, the people think that they are giving information to AMISOM. They'll behead them. we have some liaison officers, they wear civil, dodge and enter here before they come and wear their uniforms, because if they see them coming here and going back there, they'll be killed.
These security men serving in Somalia have seen the devastation brought about by conflict. Their wish is to return home to their families in a country that will be peaceful enough to welcome them back. Abdulhai Mumin, GBC 24, Mogadishu, Somalia.